This is Thieves Cant Capers, unlocking the systems behind the stories. Welcome back to Thieves Cant Capers. It's our deep dive into systems, mechanics, and the games behind the stories we share at the table. I'm Jeremy Shane.
And I'm Chris White.
And this is the Draw Steel Job, Part 10. And Chris, we are bringing this job to a close today.
It's hard to believe.
It is.
Finally at the end.
Yeah, 10 episodes in. We're going to finish up Book 1 Heroes today with a look at that for the Director chapter. And then we're turning our attention to Book 2, Draw Steel Monsters. So a lot to get to. Just a reminder, if you want to catch up, go back on the playlist. We cover everything from hero creation, ancestries, backgrounds, classes, to rewards. There's plenty of content in the backlog. But today, we jump in with Chapter 15 for the Director. As a general overview, this is your GM advice section, Chris, along with a few tools provided to assist you in your role as the Director. It discusses adventure and campaign design, using hazards, calling for tests, prepping and running montages and respites, and then there are lots of examples along the way. There's a great little sidebar right up front in this chapter. It reminds us that directors don't need to memorize every last rule of the game before running it, especially with regards to the abilities and features of the heroes. And that's going to be on those players. Everybody
has to contribute. This isn't a one-person show.
Yeah.
Because if you had to remember all of it, nobody would play this game.
Right. But that's good advice to remember. Take what you need in the moment. If there's confusion or conflict, you can sort that out however you need to then and there, but just, maybe reference that rule for next time and you're good to go. We'll start with the campaign pitch as described by Draw Steel. The guidance here begins with how a director should handle the pitch. I assume this is before session 0. Maybe part of session 0, but generally you want to pitch your idea first according to the game, addressing a few questions to give players an overview, like where's the campaign taking place, what major events are important to the campaign's plot that have already occurred, what kinds of adventures might the heroes have over the course of this campaign. To me, that last question is kind of tricky, and these all could be tricky,
right,
depending on how much planning you've already done. But I feel like what kinds of adventures the heroes might have, that's great if you can answer it. Otherwise, I would like players to know that I'm going to be responding to their choices. And those are the sorts of adventures we're going to have. I don't know what sort of adventure we're going to go on. I don't know what's going to happen. After the overview, the game recommends breaking down expected gameplay into 4 different categories. Again, this could be tricky. Directors are encouraged to assign an expected frequency of high, medium, or low to each of combat, exploration, interpersonal, and intrigue encounters. How much pressure does this put on the directors? Does this detract from emergent gameplay?
It's knowing your group. If everybody is just interested in combat and they're kind of falling asleep and reading their phone when you get to dialogue, then you probably have a party that's more combat oriented.
Sure.
So that's going to dominate. But, or maybe the opposite. Maybe everybody's getting a little bored of combat, but they might be much more interested in the interpersonal stuff.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But again, you're referencing observations that are made in the moment during play.
Right.
This is asking you to describe up front how much of each of these things you expect there to be. My answer to that is, I don't know, because I want to run a game that is unfolding before us.
Right. Not knowing the group. Yeah.
But I suppose if you can have a general idea, maybe that's all they're suggesting here, is having a general idea. It's not locking into anything.
Right.
At one point in this section, there's a mention of running a published campaign versus writing your own setting. Mm-hmm. It's just options. How do you want to approach it? And the book says writing your own campaign setting and adventures takes time. Maybe you want to save yourself some of that work and instead run a campaign in an official MCDM setting. I appreciate the marketing here. I've never saved time by running a published campaign.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because you're having to learn someone else's ideas opposed to just making it yourself.
Right.
It's a balancing act, and I don't think everybody's the same. I think some people have an ability to create and to have that on the fly reaction, whereas I think others need material that's already made. It's there. The answer's here. And I know it intimately enough that I can answer the questions I need to or get where I need to go fast enough.
Yeah. Well, I think there's enough material here in Draw Steel on the character creation side that a lot of those hooks and the things that you might be referencing here, the things that you've got to take care of yourself are going to be provided for you.
Right.
The game is handing you things to work with. You just got to stitch it together, man.
It does feel like the people making the game and the game itself is trying to provide a more complete experience than you might be accustomed to in other game systems.
Sure. With, if you're just picking up the rule book,
right?
Like this is not just, it is just the rule book, but it is so much more than that. I like the way that you phrase that. It is a complete experience.
Right. And so I think, well, no doubt they want you to buy more products. I think there is something to the fact that everything is contained in this system and is designed as such. So it's like the question we answered, earlier in the week about customizing monsters, right? The people building the game are saying, look, we made monsters that are balanced and they're good. Use these because they work well.
Right.
It's sort of the same idea, I think, about the adventures, right? We designed it with this system in mind.
Trust that it's going to work.
Trust the plan, bro.
Right. All right, moving on. They address house rules. If you want to tweak some rules to better fit your table or campaign, there are some suggestions here. Maybe respites last only 8 hours, or it could be that they last a whole week. Maybe critical hits only happen on a 20. Maybe players can spend hero tokens to take away some of the director's malice resource. Maybe characters get an extra +1 bonus to a characteristic of their choice at first level. Those are all some options that the book throws out. And they are cool ideas, but I wish this section were bigger. I wish that they offered more guidance in this department.
I agree.
Next up, building the campaign. There's some world building advice that we don't need to go into great detail on here. There's the classic start small advice. You focus only on what you need for the moment, keep everything else vague, and then you build outward from there. And then you get descriptions of campaign types, details on outlining your campaign echelon by echelon. If characters have complications, those should factor in here as well. In fact, it's recommended that you create a separate outline based solely on a character's complication. So I guess you've got to do this for every character. You don't have to do anything, but just per the advice here. It's a cool way to keep the characters in mind. That's the advice that I was just throwing out a few minutes back. Focus on the characters.
Yeah,
so this helps you do that.
Yeah, it's some work, but I think establishing those things, again, know your group. Right. I think for some they're gonna eat this up.
Yeah,
and that's gonna be time well spent.
Sure. And it says separate outline, but I think the intent here is that you're keeping that campaign outline in mind, and how can you weave the complications into that.
Right.
So it's a separate outline, but it touches the first one.
Right.
Creating adventures is up next. Villains, their motivations, the goal of the adventure, NPC creation, locations, running exploration and hazards, just chunks of advice on those subjects before we move on to negotiations. You get some advice on how to roll them out. You get a set of what the book calls sample negotiators. They are stat blocks, essentially, for negotiations. Everything from a bandit chief to a duke, a lich, or a dragon, even a deity. Montages get their treatment next with a look at how a director should prepare and run them. Maybe even throw in a twist like a surprise combat or a negotiation right in the middle of the montage. And then after that, you get a series of montage examples, lots of them. And this is what James Wyatt did so well back in the 4th edition DMG 2.
Right.
That made skill challenges finally click for so many players. I was excited to see this many example montages in the book. So lots of inspiration here for your montage. The respites section gives some advice on handling project events, crafting roles, other general information related to respites. And then there's the rewards, all about when to reward heroes with treasure, titles, renown, wealth, and how much to reward at a given time, right?
Yep.
And then finally, the first session, the chapter and the book conclude with a ready-made outline for your session 0 that you can take or leave, or you can take it and tweak it to your liking. But it's nice to have a framework of what that first session could look like.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty good guideline for a first session. It's funny they talk about scheduling, which
it is a consideration.
Pretty much when all of us can get here on those rare occasions when that's possible.
Too rare.
But not everybody's that way. It may be, hey, Thursdays work good for me. Yeah. So you need to, if you can establish that early on, perfect.
Right.
And stick to it as much as possible. Good for you. You're doing much better than we are. So talks about like handling disputes. This is a good idea. If we're not sure about a rule, we're going to make a ruling in the moment, and then later on we'll go back and figure out, right, instead of bogging the game down, right? So I think establishing those things early on, hey, listen, I'll make a ruling. We're all cool with it, but understand that doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be how it is going forward. But we just, for speed of play, this is the way. Yeah,
the goal is to get it right. We might not always. We're not going to let that slow us down.
Right.
We want to have fun.
Right. But again, with that first session, you're just establishing expectations. And this is where I think like the idea of, hey, is this campaign going to be combat focused? Or, well, maybe I don't want to play an intrigue character. So it is sort of establishing those expectations. And I know we said it's hard to define that early on.
Psst, hey, we're playing Draw Steel. It's going to be combat focused.
But I want to sneak and negotiate.
Yeah, and you can.
Yes,
and you
absolutely.
will.
So it's, I didn't see anything here that was out of place. It's all helpful.
All right. So a good plan for that first session. And that does it for that chapter and the book. To me, it's really interesting that with just a few exceptions, like the mechanical details of hazards, this chapter focuses on narrative and inspiration more than it does mechanics.
Right.
Maybe a better way to put it, it's like rather than hand the director a toolkit, it tries to show that even though the game is super crunchy, those mechanics don't outweigh the story. They should serve and enhance the story. And these sections kind of explain that in more detail because they're addressed to the director. Mm-hmm. And so advice on combat and reskinning monsters and all of those tools that you expect to see for the director, those actually show up in Draw Steel Monsters.
I think this is the advantage and or disadvantage of having effectively a player's handbook and a mini DMG attached, right?
All in one.
Yeah. Why would we have combat advice here if we have a combat chapter in the same book?
Right.
So it's, it is what it is. So they're just addressing the things that really didn't fit in anywhere else, but still needed to be addressed.
So with book 1 down, the remainder of this episode will be focused on book 2, Draw Steel Monsters. So as we crack this one open, first off, as we did with book 1, let's take a look at this cover.
I love it. It's clearly I don't know what they call them, but it's Beholder-esque.
This is Zoranox the Tyract who graces the cover.
Tyract?
Yeah. Big bad, psionic eyes floating around him, giant gaping double maw, and of course some unfortunate heroes who are tasked with taking this dude down. Great cover. I like it.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to run into that thing.
As we crack open the book, it starts with monster basics. There's some introductory material here, more RPG veggies that we have to eat.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Explains that if you're familiar with Draw Steel, the creature stat blocks should be clear, but it does clarify a few elements that we can expect to see on monster stat blocks, like languages, keywords by creature type, think abyssal, animal, fey, plant, undead. Encounter value. Every creature has a value, and that's useful for encounter building. Stat blocks will also include a free strike damage total. Monster free strikes deal static damage. That's designed for just speed of gameplay. So on an opportunity attack, you know exactly what that monster is going to throw.
It hits, and it does a set amount of damage.
Right. Easy. The signature ability is noted in the stat block. Every creature has one. A lot of creatures also have traits, and these will be noted there. They don't require a maneuver or an action to use. Some creatures, like solos and leaders, will have a villain action that's noted. There are actually 3 villain actions. Each one can be used once per encounter, and they are numbered. They're intended to be used in that numerical order to kind of establish this narrative flow, but you're not bound to that. You can drop them out in any order, but they're kind of designed to kind of build in intensity.
It's like an opener, and then like a kind of a control in the second one, and then the third one's like the big move.
Yeah, I think these are cool, and whenever we get to the monsters, we might be able to call out 1 or 2 of these and tell you what they look like. Creature organization is also noted in a monster stat block. Its mode of organization informs their power level and their encounter value. And by organization, we're talking minion, horde, platoon, elite, leader, solo. Like, how does this creature typically appear? Mm-hmm. And then finally, the creature's role is noted. And that describes its general function in combat. Like ambush, there are a lot of these. Ambusher, artillery, brute, controller, defender, harrier, hexer, mount, and support. So even that title kind of gives you an idea of what that creature is going to be doing versus the heroes.
I think that's also a great character name. Harrier Hexer.
That's our next build.
Yes.
All right. Next, we learn more about the special resource that directors use to fuel their monsters' most powerful abilities. That would be malice. Directors earn malice at the start of combat. It's equal to the number of victories per hero. And then at the start of each combat round, they gain it equal to the number of heroes in the battle plus the combat round modifier. So they are always gaining more and more malice. Monster stat blocks can use malice. They might have an ability that defines a certain cost that has to be paid. And there are a couple of universal basic malice features that every creature has access to, even if they don't have a specific malice section on their stat block, which is cool.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Chris, let's talk next about minions. The book tells us that minions act together in squads. They take their actions on the same turn, anybody who's in that squad. But they can take a move and a main action, a move and a maneuver, or 2 moves. So a minion's actions are limited.
Right.
Which is helpful because if you're using minions, there are probably quite a few of them.
Yes.
Again, though, grouped into squads to kind of help with the flow, but actions can still be overwhelming. This seems to help with that.
Yep. Of course, if you played 4E at all, that's where, that idea of minions was sort of introduced. I've used it in 5E before. I love the minion rule because this is that fantasy idea of you facing the horde and just tearing through this army of enemies. They're not that tough. They're not that strong, but there's a lot of them. One hero should be able to take out a lot of minions.
And when a hero does kill a minion, let's talk about what happens. If there is excess damage that is of a total high enough that it could kill a second minion, if it equals or exceeds that minion's stamina, it will.
Yeah.
So kind of think cleave,
yes,
in a sense.
A second edition fighter could do this.
There you go.
Yeah.
And there are some other fun details in the minion section, like squad actions, minion maneuvers. So you can have fun with minions. Next, we're on to encounter building. Again, not going into great detail here, but there are some recommended steps, like selecting encounter difficulty and encounter strength, which then will tell you what your budget looks like. How much do you have to spend on monsters? From there, you can use that creature's encounter value to build the encounter before finally placing your purchased monsters into initiative groups. Mm-hmm. Because the way that initiative flows back and forth from the director's side to the hero side, When it bounces to the director, they have a choice: which of my enemies is going first, or which group is going at this time.
Mm-hmm.
When you do put that encounter together, you want to keep in mind that the book's advice is to pay attention to creatures' roles and organizations. Basically, you want a variety of these things.
Right. Yeah.
Like you don't want all brutes in this encounter.
You want some archers.
Or maybe you do.
Yeah.
For reasons, but in general, yeah, you want some artillery, some range, some big bads up close, some tanks.
Those brutes become a lot more interesting when they're getting some buffs.
Right.
Yeah.
Some support from the back line.
Right.
Absolutely. So keep the variety, keep it interesting. The sidebars in this section I thought were really useful. There's one on encounters for large or small parties, like what do you need to do to adjust for, let's say you've got a party of 3 or less, or you've got 7 heroes or more than that in your party. I wouldn't recommend that.
But definitely got to up the power a little bit.
Yeah, but you do get some advice for that. There's another sidebar that talks about how you can change leaders and elites into solo monsters, which is cool.
Yeah.
It just opens up more options for you. And there's another one that advises that encounter objectives be put out in the open. So if you're using an objective, like here's something the heroes need to do to quote unquote win the encounter, they probably need to know what that is.
Right. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, there may be situations where they don't, and they have to discover that through the combat. But yeah, in general, they need to know what they're supposed to be doing.
All right. So speaking of encounter objectives, that's what the next section is all about. Again, not every encounter needs an objective, but these are great for throwing in some variety. And the guidance here, I think, is really well done. So, Chris, some objectives that you might throw in front of your players just to kind of break up the grind of you've got to whittle them down to 0 stamina.
Right.
That's it doesn't always have to be that. The book lays out some examples like maybe you just got to diminish their numbers.
Right.
Or maybe there's a specific foe among them that you need to take down.
Kill the general and the rest will run away.
Right. Yeah. There you go. Or get the thing.
Yeah. Find the MacGuffin. And that's all we got to do.
Right. They're guarding it. If we can just get our hands on it, we win. Or destroy the thing.
Yeah.
Alternatively. Save someone. That could be an objective. Escort someone. There are lots of these examples. The book does a great job of providing the examples and then talking about what the setup might be. Where should enemies be positioned? How can that factor in? So great guidance.
It's good, and you might not think about it, but some enemies are inherently going to be squishier than others, so they're going to need protection. You don't want your archers on the front line. You have to bear those things in mind on setup.
All right. On running encounters, great tips here as well. This is where the book specifies, hey, just use the stat blocks as written. But if you want to tinker with something, you can dial stamina up or down.
Yeah.
You're free to tinker with that to suit your needs. Otherwise, trust that the stat blocks are going to function as they're intended to. There are reminders here as well to keep monsters moving on the grid, right? That way characters or PCs can move as well. Reminders to spread out the damage among the heroes. You don't just want to focus fire on one specific hero.
Yeah.
For a couple of reasons. One, you don't want to make somebody feel like they're being dogpiled.
Right.
Even though it might be the strategically sound approach.
Yeah.
But two, as the book points out, certain heroes are going to have abilities that trigger when they take damage.
Right.
So if you're not attacking them, then you're kind of shortchanging their experience.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and plus it's a little more cinematic. You want everybody in the fight, right?
Yeah, if you're watching the Avengers, the camera doesn't cut to
just Iron Man standing there,
checking his phone.
Yeah, the Hulk's taking a nap.
Another really important reminder in this section is that even creatures with no stat block maneuvers They can still use the default grab, hide, and knockback maneuvers. It's just not going to be noted in their stat block, but you've got to remember that they have those options.
It's always in the toolkit. Yep.
Speaking of toolkits, reskinning monsters is something that they touch on. We get some information about changing a monster's description, their movement, their environment, damage type, level. It also provides all the math that you need for tinkering with characteristics and abilities, kind of peeling back the curtain. So once you're familiar enough with the game, this might be a fun exercise for a director. You don't have to create from the ground up. You can take one of these and you can build what you want out of it.
Exactly.
Okay, so with all of that preamble out of the way, we are on to the monsters themselves.
Yep.
The reason we open this book
Meat and potatoes.
To get an eye on the bad guys, the opposition. The first entry here, well, that's after the first real entry is Ajax. He's like the big bad of the setting, right? Yeah. He leads off the monsters. But right after that, Anguillatls. They are like frog people, but that's not really what has me excited. 8 different stat blocks for these creatures.
Yeah.
Yes. that gets me excited. Now, you don't get that with every creature.
Right.
Some creatures are just more specific, There's not a variety. But the options when you do get that many stat blocks, man, it's great to have that variety.
I thought it was a little intimidating. Yeah, the variety's good, but it's just, looking back and forth at these, I'd be like, okay, he's an orange one. This is she's purple. This is a green one. It's all there. It's all condensed on one page. So it's obviously, it's pretty good.
Would you take a different approach here to make this more user-friendly at the table?
Well, the problem is, at that point, you're just going to have a laundry list of things that each creature can do. So I think breaking it down as stat blocks, individual stat blocks, is probably the way to go.
I think if you've got the PDF, or I want to say maybe MCDM is working on some digital tools, but if you can build like your own separate doc with your encounter on it, just grab the stat blocks you need out of this, put those on a separate doc to cut down on some of the clutter, make it more focused and specific for that encounter, then I think you're doing all right.
Right. I mean, you consider a lot of other games, you might have 3 different, I don't want to say subtypes, but basically 3 different paths a monster could go down, but it's going to be a block of text. It's not as clearly defined. So I do think this is probably the best way. It's just a little intimidating seeing that wall of
it can be
of types.
Before we move on and kind of scroll through and call out some of our favorite monsters, can we talk about what an entry for these monsters looks like outside of just providing the stat blocks?
First, you're going to have a description of the creature. You're going to have some background, some lore. I don't think any of them were super in-depth, but it's enough information to run them and have an idea. It looks like after that, you're going to have those lists of their malice, and some of these are pretty fun. So these are like the super moves, and so the director can pull these out as he needs to. It's just I think 1 per combat round. Yeah, I believe is the limitation.
I think you're right.
Them. This is the fun to me for the director. Like this is pretty fun. Like you're kind of playing your own. A whole different game at this point. You know what I mean? It's like, I've got these malice points here, and I might throw this at them. This would be interesting. Aside from everything else you're doing to run these creatures, it's some really different options.
And as much as you speak to the, intimidation factor of this wall of stat blocks, knowing that everything is self-contained within the stat blocks, within the malice section, everything you need to run this creature is right there.
It is.
You don't have to reference anything else.
It is. And I really like that. I mean, there are a few actions like we spoke about earlier that you just need to know are available to all of them.
Sure.
Right. But yeah, that's the beauty of it. It's why people love the 4E stat block so much, is because it's all self-contained. Everything I need is on this page. And so
it is a game master's dream.
Yeah. Yeah. I think these would be fun to play with.
All right, as we scroll through, what monsters catch your eye? What stands out, Chris?
I think you and I both were drawn to the bugbear.
Oh, man. Yeah, let me scroll to that page now. This is the scariest bugbear in art that I have come across.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Look at this maniac. Page 52 there.
Yeah, because it's got like that. It's got like a baboon mouth thing going on, which is like the worst mouth. And like there's almost kind of like a spider feel I'm getting from it. I don't know why, but oh man, this would be terrifying.
Right, it's got the coolest mohawk I've ever seen. It like runs all the way down his back.
Yeah.
So the bugbear art is great. I think the chimera art is equally good. Man, have you seen that? Check out page 56.
Yeah, it's right after it. Yeah, I know. It's great. The goat head's my favorite, though. It's the angriest little goat. It's somehow angrier than the lion and the dragon.
Something tells me that goat will not faint.
No, but that would be funny, though.
One head just dangling there.
For 3 malice, you can just faint and you're immune to all attacks.
Later in the book, there are so many demons.
And the art was beautiful in the player's book, but there was something about it I didn't quite like it as much.
There was an aesthetic there
that
didn't quite jive.
The monster book is almost worth it just for the pictures alone. I love some of this art.
Just as in the Heroes book, where sometimes there's a section that's introduced with a full page art,
right,
bleeding all the way to the edge of the page. You see that all throughout the Monsters book. So whenever we get to the Demons section, I don't know what you call this thing, but it's terrifying.
A lot of these monsters, to me, I don't know if you picked up this or not, but it seems so abstract. Like they are really alien. Like it's, you know what I mean? I mean, the traditional thing, like a bugbear, like this thing looks different. Like a bugbear turned up to 10, right?
Yeah.
But some of these things are just weird. And like but I like them. I think they're beautiful, but they're odd.
Speaking of scary art, holy cow, the hobgoblins. Did you see their full art page? Scroll down to hobgoblins. Tell me that's not terrifying.
I'm kind of staring at dragons.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about dragons.
I know. I'm telling you, this art is really good. This is better than 5e, in my opinion. Like, I love some of this art.
And here's a question that I've got for any longtime MCDM fans. I know that, they put out Flea Mortals, which is their 5e monster book, from which this book drew a lot of inspiration. This is their draw steel version of Flea Mortals. So I'm curious, is a lot of this art reused from that product, or how much of this is new material? Just curious. It's all new to us.
But before I get to Hobgoblin, check out the Shadow Elves.
Oh yeah,
I heard them talking about the developers talking about these. They're wild, like, but in the design, like they're intentionally designed so there's not like a gray, like they're in shadow
on one half
and dark, or it's light. Like and that's how they live. Like that's their whole thing. It's really cool.
They are cool. And how long before we see an expansion that allows for Shadow Elf PCs?
It's in the works. That's already in the works.
Okay.
That was what they were. That was the part of the discussion. So Shadow Elves at some point will be available.
They are super cool.
Okay. Oh my gosh, the Hobgoblins. Oh, that's awful. They're very purple.
Yeah.
This guy has like 30 sets of hands hanging off his armor and a couple of skulls.
Yeah, these are not your friends.
Yeah, so a lot of these monsters have really been reimagined, and it's great. I'm looking forward to slaying many of these things.
Scroll down just a little further. You got to check out the King Fissure worm.
It's like a purple worm.
But look at the cow. It is bursting up from the ground, and of course, this poor cow is going to be a little worse for wear.
I want to believe that cow is actually launching an attack. I want to believe that cow is about to strike.
And by draw steel standards, what the name of that attack would be.
What would that be?
Moo.
Moo. Yes, it would. Yes.
That's exactly what they would call it.
It would be like moo with like 12 O's and an exclamation point at the end. Yeah. So again, I'm looking forward to you running this and seeing what you think when we get it in action.
Right. We can't possibly go through every creature here, comment on everything, but the last thing we'll say for the monster section, the animals section, is more of a toolkit. I mean, you get some example animals, but then you get all of the different potential abilities that a specific animal might have, so you can kind of create anything that you can imagine out of those parts. So that's a real toolkit for you. After the monster section, then, the book is going to conclude with a section on dynamic terrain and on retainers. So you get tons of useful stat blocks for elements of terrain, which include traps, as well as other interactive elements. So they've kind of used the word terrain in a very broad sense. Another toolkit. And then retainers, that's the final chapter devoted to rules and stat blocks for a huge variety of potential followers that you might attract. And with that, we hit the back cover of book 2. That brings us to the end of our journey through Draw Steel.
I have the same problem with this book that I have with every monster manual.
Yeah.
I want to play the monsters. I don't want to be a purple weirdo or a little short duelist Three Musketeer guy. I want to be a armored kobold pangolin thing. That looks awesome.
Well, then maybe you want to run Draw Steel later in the month and let me build my own hero.
Well, let's let you go first. I want you to have your moment of glory first.
All right. So that is going to do it for this run through of Draw Steel. 10 parts to get through these 2 books. It does not, however, mean that we are necessarily done with Draw Steel and the Draw Steel job forever.
Right.
We've got ample opportunity, Chris, to revisit the Draw Steel job. There's a lot of lore that we haven't discussed. Maybe we want to take a look at a handful of these monsters in more depth in the future.
Right.
This series allows us to revisit and add on.
Sure. And as we get more experience with the system, we might find out that our opinions change or our understanding changes. I'm sure we will.
Sure.
So, yeah.
We might have to do a revisit.
A little follow-up.
Post-play, post-mortem.
Sounds good.
So we will return to the Draw Steel job. But for now, 10 episodes in, thank you for following along. If you discovered our channel through Draw Steel Capers, thanks for sticking with us. Remember, you can find us every week on our sister show, Thieves Cant, a Tabletop Gaming Podcast. We're going to be back with that later this week, and that'll be our last show for the month of October. We've been hard at it. We need a respite.
Some us time, me time. I don't know.
Are you going to undertake a downtime project?
Yes, I am. Yeah. I'm going to start rebuilding a road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Remember, you can hit us up, thievescantcast@gmail.com, or find us at Thieves Cant Cast online. Drop a comment. Be sure and subscribe to keep up with us. And until next time, thanks for listening. I'm Jeremy Shane.
And I'm Chris White.
So long.